You're watching Half Asian Tarot Queen. I'm Lisa, and it's nice to see you. The readings the last couple days have been like really pretty dramatic, and we just passed through the 1111 portal, which, you know, that's supposed to be like a really big turning point. They call it an ascension portal, but, you know, like a lot with karma and sort of like moving on from cycles in life. And it's really interesting because it's like today, like in my Facebook memories, you know, you get the 1 year ago, 3 years ago or whatever, and it's really weird how you know, like a similar situation, like in terms of like karma, was happening, you know, in my feed. Like it's almost like a seasonal thing or something. It's really wild, you know, how that stuff lines up. But anyway, there's been a lot that's kind of come through in the last couple days. The overall reading for November was breaking free from oppression, and in the last couple of days, the messages have been a lot about sort of like pushing past this resistance, you know, towards this new reality. And it's really interesting how that like parallels with what's going on with the elections. So, you know, it's like a universal thing, but it's pretty wild. So anyways, I'm going to start with the Urban Tarot, which is this deck that I just gave away last month. It's this new deck that I've gotten. I really love it. It's like the traditional deck, but all the archetypes in the deck have been sort of modernized with using New York City as a muse. So it's just sort of like these modern archetypes. Oh my gosh, there's two just flipped out on the bottom. Okay, so at the bottom of the deck we have Victory. So this is really, I think, auspicious because there's been a lot about pushing past this resistance, you know, in the last couple days. So we got Swiftness, the Public Defender, Success, the Universe, and the Dancer. So this is really interesting because, you know, like I said, the last couple days there's been a lot about pushing past this resistance, and now we have this Eight of Wands, you know, which in the traditional deck, it's like a message coming in, but it's also like quick action. And then we have this Public Defender, and we have Success. So it's just like almost like, you know, like there's been a lot about having to push through this oppressive situation. And it's interesting because we have this Public Defender, you know, who's typically is like a person who defends people who are oppressed and like can't necessarily defend themselves, you know. And I think this is really interesting, particularly in the context of what I was just saying about, you know, the election, because we have this Public Defender who's like defending the will of the people or of the oppressed, you know. So there's a swift message coming in. There's this Defender, and then we have that followed by the Six of Pentacles, which in this deck is Success, but in the regular deck, it's you know, kind of like a rebalancing. You know, when things have gotten out of whack, it's like bringing things back into balance, like a rebalancing of giving and receiving. And then we have the Universe, which is sort of like the whole thing about the 1111 portal. I mean, this came through on the Pushing Past Resistance reading that I did for the 1111 portal, where it's just like an ascension, like you've moved through whatever that resistance is. And then we go to the Princess of Wands, which is like the Page of Wands in the traditional deck, which is like a new perspective, like moving on to like a fiery, passionate, new beginning. Here it's like the dancer, you know, so it's almost like we've had to dance around, you know. It's funny because there's like all this kind of walking on eggshells going on around the president right now, because there's like this denial about the reality of what's going on. So it's almost like having to have like dance around this new reality, but despite that, it's happening, you know. And you know, we have this public defender, we have this swift message, so this kind of implies that there's like this big shift that's happening, you know. And then on the next row we have the Three of Wands, which is virtue in this deck, but like this is a card of seeing off in the distance, like, you know, you're kind of waiting for your ships to come in, and you can see it in the distance, like it's there, it's just, it's not, it hasn't fully unfolded yet, you know. And so it's a card of manifestation, but it's interesting because it comes in under this swift message. So like something that you can see, like there's a message coming in relative to that. And then we have the Eon, which this is a card of karmic reckoning. It's the judgment card in the traditional deck. And it's interesting that this comes in right under this public defender. So like there is some karma that is like happening that this person is defending. And then we have the High Priestess, you know, so this is a very intuitive, like, healer, you know, she's taking a moment for self-care, but there's some sort of balance that's coming to this person. And then, interestingly, underneath this universe, this ascension, we have the Sun, which is a card of, it's the happiest card in the deck, it's a card of fulfillment. So we're stepping into a new world, and it's a really happy development, you know. And then we had two cards that fell out, like the Gourmet Chef and Wealth, which this is like the beginning of a dynasty, you know. We have a whole thread about this, is this is like generational wealth, like a solid foundation for like an empire, you know. And that's coming to this Gourmet Chef here, which is the Knight of Discs, you know, which is like the Knight of Pentacles in the traditional deck. So there's this new perspective coming to this character. I like this because I actually am a gourmet chef. I mean, I'm a vegan chef, and that's sort of my thing. So I'm like, ooh, this is a good message for me. Okay, so I'm going to just stop and shuffle a couple more decks on top of this to get a little bit more insight, but so you don't have to sit through the shuffling, I'm going to pause. Okay, so interesting. Like, so I picked some cards from Radiant Wise Spirit for some overall energies, and we got the Fool. So this is taking a leap of faith into, like, the unknown, you know, like, off we go into the wild blue yonder. And we have the Seven of Pentacles, which is, like, planting seeds for a new future, you know. So we're definitely stepping into a new era. And we're kind of putting down roots. And then we have the Nine of Cups. So this is a card of wishes coming true. You know, so this is something that we've been working on for a while. But then we had these last two cards that came out together. We had the Five of Swords and the Devil. So this, you know, speaks to, like, you know, we're breaking through this oppressive situation, like all the readings leading up to this, the monthly reading, the pushing through resistance reading, talking about moving into this new future, but having to, like, push through an oppressive situation and it being a very difficult challenge. I mean, like, Exhibit A, the election and what's going on with that. Like, there's, like, not a universal acceptance of the new way forward, you know. There's going to be some winners and there's going to be some losers, you know. And, but it looks like we're having to, like, push through a really toxic situation. in order to like break through to this new beginning. So, you know, not all of that is going to be pleasant, but like, you know, keep your eye on the prize, keep moving forward, because it is happening. I mean, I think that's kind of what's happening with the election too. People are just like doing what they can, moving forward. You know, we're going through the process, and we're just going to let things play out, you know, and that's kind of what we're having to do here. So then I went to the Mystical Shaman Oracle to get another perspective, and I got the Circle, the Serpent, the Luminous World, the Warrior, Luminous Warrior, and the Upper World. And then at the bottom of the deck we had the Lower World. So this is really interesting, because this speaks to like the sort of like unconscious realms, you know, where things that we've sort of dissociated from kind of hide, you know. So it's just sort of like things that need to be healed, things that we're like in denial about, you know. So for example, you know, the election, you know, there's some denial about what the outcome is of that, you know. And so this energy is here, and it's just sort of like permeating. It's at the bottom of the deck, you know, and so it's something that we're all having to kind of like work through and heal, you know, in order to like move through to this new beginning. But this card speaks to community and being part of something that's bigger than yourself, and like you know, that being part of the solution. And I think that, you know, that's happening. It's just like eventually like everyone's gonna like come together in one sort of like collective consciousness, and that's what's going to heal the situation. You know, we're all going to come to a consensus, and that's where the healing's going to happen, you know. And we have the Serpent. So this is a card of like Kundalini rising and a Kundalini awakening, and I think that really speaks to this whole theme about breaking through oppression, you know, because it's just sort of like this energy is finally being liberated, so that things can manifest in the world, you know, and whatever this is that's being repressed is going to be unleashed, you know. It's going to be freed. And then in doing that, we become the Luminous Warrior. So this is someone who's like healed all of their wounds and now has come into the state of flow, so that everything that they need comes to them as they need it, and they've also like conquered whatever demons or oppression that's been holding them back, and now they're just in sync with the world around them in this state of grace. And then we have the Upper World, which speaks to the heavenly realms and the support from those realms. So this is like really beautiful, because it speaks to, you know, there's like this big massive conflict that's having to get worked through, but we're having all this support, and ultimately we're going to get there, you know. But it's just, we're kind of in that moment where you sort of just like have to like push through to the new beginning, and it's there's some drama with that, you know, some big drama. So I'm going to go to Starseed Oracle to pick a final card, and yeah, it's just, you know, stay in a place of peace, and, you know, stay positive and keep pushing ahead towards the future, because things are going to work out, but we're going to have to move through this difficult energy, and that's just part of the process. But, you know, don't get discouraged, because it's all going towards a happy ending. Okay, so we got the Messenger at the bottom, bringing harmony and balance. We're going there, you know, but we're going to have to just like work through and heal this on the way there. We got Hariath, longing for home, homesick for the stars. You know, we have a higher vision. We need to stay focused on as we move through this. And empathic starseed, energetic sovereignty, absorbing what's not yours. So, you know, don't get hung up on this. Keep moving forward. Just take responsibility for your own stuff and keep focused. Keep your energy focused on what you're trying to manifest. Because, you know, we don't want to get side railed by this, because it's just a bump in the road, ultimately. Okay, so it's ultimately a good reading. Don't get discouraged, because we're moving towards a better world.